talk about Lagunitas, you talk about beer being just one part of the equation.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's a beer company. So tell me what you mean by encompassing so much more.
Yeah, I think if you look back at European history, I mean, where breweries are 1,000 years old. I mean, we're in Bavaria where they're building the brewery house we're installing here, and there's a brewery there. It's 1,200 years old. It's mounted on a cliff because it was built before there were pumps, and the town got built around that brewery. I mean, the brewery was, I think, the thing that nucleated the town, from that point. And so the beer is
So
like
Europe
such
was
a
built
center
on
for
beer,
things.
not churches.
It was built, but the churches made the beer, though, right?
That's
Those of you
true.
know about the Belgian
the
traditions,
monks,
the
right?
monasteries,
Yeah.
and that's how they were centers of knowledge. So they were centers of this very specialized skill that were making wine and making beer and probably making spirits and
Could the
whatever.
monks drink the beer, or were they not allowed to drink the beer?
I think they were required.
They were required.
Has that changed? I'm not sure. St. Teresa School in Palatine. I can remember the parties when I was the pastor was always was the most kind of flamboyant character at the.
And you just
the
chose
parents'
that. You
parties.
just chose that word flamboyant out of a hat, right?
It just came as
random
as
word,
natural.
yeah,
Actually,
yeah,
it seemed
yeah,
like the
yeah.
best descriptor.
Okay. We were in the car
Yes.
not that long ago,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
people don't need to know why we were in a car together, but we were in a car, and
Best left to the imagination.
you were trying to explain to me that possibly, and I don't want to cut down your beer because I think your beer is wonderful, that you were arguing that the taste of something is purely subjective.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah.
can I not say objectively that this beer is a good beer? In other words, it's of a higher quality than, say, Budweiser.
Well, first of all, you can say that.
No, right.
Go ahead.
But
I'll
I
wait-
mean,
I'll
would
wait.
I be
It's
incorrect?
better if you do it. Well, everything's so subjective, right?
Are your beers good?
I think. Okay, so if you, what you're getting at is this. I mean, I have this idea that there's quality is a point on a curve.
Yeah.
And it's like if you have the vertical axis, and that's flavor and strength of intensity of ingredients, and it was probably the same for cooking, And if the x-axis here, this is time.
Okay.
Then if you want to have those huge flavors, it's going to have a short shelf life. And if you want long shelf life, you have to bring the flavors all the way down.
And that's what you would say Budweiser.
And there's a reason why those beers taste like they do. There's a reason why the European beers taste like they do. The lagers, come over here, the Stellas and Becks and Heinekens, is because this is the most stable baseline for the beer. And so the big thing I think that most craft breweries in the country are dealing with is how do you make a beer that has big flavors that is also stable enough to be commercially viable long after the bud is off the rose about craft beer. So when people are sort of tired of craft
Hold
beer,
on,
it's like,
somebody's got
are
a
the
call.
beers still
Tony,
delicious?
somebody has a call.
Yeah.
We'll wait.
Tell her I'll call her back.
Yeah. My phone
my
has
mother.
a switch that you can put, and then it doesn't ring.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just joking.
Excellent point.
Yeah. So could you picture a world 50 years from now where people taste this beer and it tastes terrible to them?
Well, when we made our IPA back in 1995 the first time, people thought it was way too strong and nobody's ever going to drink a beer like that. And, it's like now it's sort of kind of ordinary-ish in a way. I mean, pleasant and middle of the road is not an extreme anything. So, yeah, things change. I mean, you remember when you first started eating Indian food, it's like, oh, that's so hot. Then after a little while, it's like, yeah, bring me more, there's an evolution. Your taste buds go through and your mind changes. And so yeah, beers are like that. These flavors, the beers we're making today, I don't think have ever been made before on planet Earth. These flavors, there's 4 ingredients. I heard some guy from Budweiser the other day, trying to explain why craft will run its course because there's only so many flavors. I think he's blind, deaf, and dumb. He's not paying any attention.
But aren't the big guys? I mean, they bought Goose Island. They're trying to get into the craft world.
So the people that work at Goose Island, the brewers, they're still working there and running the packaging line and stuff. The ones that I didn't hire as sanctuary, they're making nice beer. I mean, they're making beautiful, and they're doing the best they can. 312 Budweiser when they bought it, they moved it. They're brewing it out in Baldwinsville, New York, because they had a brewery out there that had excess capacity, and they're actually making it with the Budweiser lager yeast. Well, It might still be a wonderful beer. In fact, it may be very high quality on that low flavor, way out on the timeline thing. But it's just a different beer. But the real reason why a Budweiser buys a brand like Goose Island, this is a sad thing to say, is to control their distributors. It's not because they really want to play in the craft pool. That we're noise to them, you know.
So explain what you mean by that. In other words,
Well, all of craft brewing is 7 million barrels. Budweiser's 100 million.
and you're saying the distributors are more likely to say, okay, we can just shove that into the stores.
Yeah, and we
don't
don't
go to another person.
And Budweiser
another
says,
company.
well, focus on this. Now you can ignore these other beers now.
Does it work?
Because sometimes some distributors are receptive, but increasingly, people like you guys in the audience here who opt for kind of individual experiences like Mark's show and beers like this and places like the Hideout. It's like you go, yeah, fine, whatever. And I know what it tastes like, and I'm going to drink this instead. Thank you very much for putting that in front of me, but I'm moving past it. This is a completely consumer-driven world we're in right now. It's that, you know, the individuation of every product. You know, when it comes to configuring your web page and giving, you know, you got your phone, you can put your own picture on the front there. It's not like dictated to you anymore. It's like the people will do what they want to do.
So
it's
what
beautiful.
What matters most then when you're is it the branding or is it the product?
Branding. Because branding's the story, and this is how humans explain their own lives to themselves and to the people around them, is with stories. And so that's the beautiful thing about craft brewing. Every little brewery has a story, and its founder did something stupid, left a good job, divorced his wife, got thrown out by his mother, one thing or another, and did something that seemed crazy, you know, and or, you know, if it's a woman, in the case of a few breweries are owned by women. Our brewer in Chicago is a woman. You know, it's like you know, and they did something unusual that engenders a story, and then the hijinks kind of flow from that, and there are more stories evolve, and everybody that's in the consumer world, they're hungry for these stories because it adds richness to it. There's no story behind Budweiser anymore. I mean, I'm not going to try to slam them because they're the finest brewer in the world when it comes right down to consistency and quality and delivering the thing they promised, you know. But if the sum total of your story is an animated frog, you know, it's kind of. You better have a good one to follow it with, you know.
Tony, when you were thrown out by your mom, did you?
Don't bring my mother into this. The woman's a saint.
What were you like as a kid? Did you think? Can you look back and all that you've done and created this wonderful big company, and look back to a time when you were a kid and said, back then I thought I needed to prove something to somebody?
Oh yeah, I sure did. That's why I studied music. Wanted to be a composer. I remember being a little kid and thinking, like, listening to Sgt. Pepper's and thinking, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be the Beatles. You know?
Yeah.
Because you're a little kid and you think that. And one of the beautiful things about being interested in music as a model for the whole rest of your life is, if you're an accountant, you know, and you're studying at the finest accounting schools in the world, and you're surrounded by the most fabulous teacher, you're not thinking to yourself, I mean, you are thinking to yourself about the guy at the desk next to you, about this textbook you have to understand, about impressing the professor that's trying to put these ideas in front of you. But if you're a musician, and you say if you're writing, as I was, you're listening to Beethoven, and you're listening to Brahms, and you're listening to Frank Zappa, and you're listening to the finest composers who've ever existed on planet Earth. You're not comparing yourself to anything that is even realistic to compare yourself to. And so it means that your aspirations are limitless. And so when it comes to the brewery, I mean, I didn't realize this at first, but the truth is, it's like I approached it like music, and I was like, well, you know, I want to be one of the best brewers in the world. I don't want to be better than the guy down the street from me. You know, I want to be better than Anheuser-Busch. I want to be more interesting than Anheuser-Busch. And this is when we were small, and I was doing it in a room the size of the stage. You know, it seemed reasonable. You know, because it's just a matter of human action. You just do things, and things occur, and you know.
So you've compared music to brewing before, to the actual,
Yeah.
like as a symphony, or you explain it much better than I do. But is there a comparison between business and music?
Well, it's all the same thing, isn't it? I mean, you know, what I said about a beer recipe, you know, it's like there's themes in the flavors. You use certain ingredients, they become your themes. How you present them becomes the initial presentation of those themes, and then there's a development of the theme, and you're tasting further into it, and now it's starting to spread across your palate, and you get the next set of themes as it hits different taste buds, and it becomes, and then finally you swallow it, and you exhale, and you feel the hop aromas and stuff in your nasal cavity. It's like it's a little piece of music, and the brand is that. and the company that houses that recipe and the brand are their stories. And that's what music is, a story. It's a story told in a language without words. And that's the thing that makes music so transcendent, and everything else is some subset of that, you know?
You love Frank Zappa.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You do, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I like Frank Zappa, but I don't love him like you do.
Well,
Can
you don't know him well
That's
enough,
that's what I want. Explain to me your love for Frank Zappa.
Frank Zappa's known a lot for, a lot of the sort of real obscene lyrics and the more shocking stuff he did. But all of that was almost like a way for him to it was like sleight of hand. It's like, okay, I'm going to do something really brilliant, but I'm going to bury it under, keep it greasy so it goes down easy. It's like, I mean, but what's underneath it is iconoclastic. The man was a workaholic when he was developing the ideas. He was a purist about his inputs. He didn't suffer fools for very long because he had a lot of work to do. And there's something. I mean, I'm a big fan of Ted Turner's too. In this little book, I mentioned this. I was a fan of Ted's before there was a CNN, when he would come to Chicago to race the Mackinac race, because at that time he was like Yachtsman of the Year 3 years running. I mean, and he was just as much of an iconoclast and a workaholic and a perfectionist and a purist about his inputs, and it was the same thing. So there's really no difference in a way. It's a vision that you want. Boy, to emulate that is.
So there's a lot of people who would say a workaholic is a bad thing.
Yeah, no.
But not you.
No, because I think I said this once before to you, is, if you, a lot of people are covetous of their personal life, and they want to work hard while they're working, and they want to play hard while they're playing. But the truth is like, if you do that, and if you're too good at it, what you end up with is half a career, and worse yet, you end up with half a life.
That's what I have.
Yeah. I don't think so, actually. I think you've found a way to smoosh it all together, so it all becomes communication, storytelling, and the writing, and this.
Stories about my kids being naked in front of people.
That's right. Yeah, the rest of it, stop. That was good right there. Yeah.
Just picture that.
Yeah, I'm getting a visual, and it's problematic.
Yeah.
Don't tell me. Okay.
All right, let's move along. So you've been here for a few years now, working on this new brewery in Chicago. Obviously, your base of operations and your home is still in California, but you're here an awful lot.
Oh, yeah.
Talk to me about the differences between the two places. Is there a substantial difference, or has the United States become one strip mall?
We were just talking about this a little bit earlier. California is as different a place from Chicago as Chicago probably is from Houston. I mean, it's and I don't want to say anything negative about California, but it's like there's such a different ethos there, because the weather is so gentle on you all the time. I think it leads to and the world around you is eye candy at every turn, and there's something about that hardness of landscape and weather that I think makes people a little bit different and a little bit more reasonable.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And so back in Petaluma, truth is, all of the people who are senior in the brewery are all from this side of the Mississippi. I mean, my head brewers from Memphis, St. Louis, my marketing director, they're from Connecticut, my COO, my CFO's from New Hampshire, and just Chicago people at the brewery. So but there's a lot of those people in California, and there's just something about going to work and stuff that's just different from the California people. I've really just dug being back here in Chicago so much. I was walking down North Avenue the other day, and I had a little hallucination that I left in '87, and I had this little daydream that I had never left, and all of a sudden I was like. And I pictured my California life, and it was like a dream. I just saw little snapshots, Polaroids. Yeah. It was funny. 27 years just evaporated.
Less hookers on North Avenue now.
That's what I was looking for.
Oh, yeah, right.
See, things have changed, some of it for the better. So.